All right, so in this module, I want to talk about programming languages. So we've been talking a lot about how algorithms can be created and how we're going to be writing code in something that will be interpreted or compiled into something that the computer can actually understand. So we know that the programming languages we're going to be talking about are not going to be in ones and zeros, thankfully, so that's awesome. But what programming languages are there? The answer to this is that there are tons of different programming languages, and many different programming languages can be used for different purposes. So, for example, there are programming languages that are better suited for building websites. There are programming languages that are used for developing mobile applications. There's programming languages for working with databases. There's programming languages for basically everything that we can think about in programming. So, there isn't just one language that rules them all, so to speak. There's a lot of different languages that are better suited for different things, but of course, a lot of these languages can be used interchangeably for different purposes. So what I mean by that is it's not like there's just one single programming language that you would use for building websites. There are many that allow you to build front ends and back ends of web applications. The same thing for mobile development. So to give you a quick example, Android applications are generally built in Java, but things have evolved over time and you can absolutely write Android applications in C Sharp, for example. The great thing is with all the advancement of the tooling that exists for us as programmers is that we can find languages that we enjoy using, that we're familiar with, that we like practicing with, and a lot of the times the tools have come such a long way that we can use those languages for different purposes. To illustrate this point even further, the programming language C Sharp is a language developed by Microsoft, and once upon a time, it would only run on Windows machines. If you fast forward to today, C Sharp can be used on Windows operating systems, Linux. You can use it in so many different cases, including embedded devices as well. So given that there are so many different programming languages, beginners often get overwhelmed with the number of choices that they have. Common questions that I hear are like, what's the best programming language to pick? Which one should I start with? People are so focused on making sure that when they start learning that they've happened to pick the best programming language or the right one right from the start. And the takeaway that I want you to have from this module is that the very first programming language you pick, you can't choose wrong. And I'll say that again, the first language you pick to program in, you're not going to choose wrong. So many of the different things that we use in programming languages are applicable to the other languages as well. So it's not like if you spent a year learning your first programming language and wanted to learn something else, that you would be starting completely from scratch and it was all a wasted effort. In fact, it would probably help you with starting your next programming language because you're not learning so many of the concepts from scratch at that point. The syntax and the different keywords, the actual things that you need to type, they might look different in different programming languages. The tools that you might use to compile them or interpret them, or how you actually execute your code, that might look different as well. But a lot of the process that you're going to be going through, think back to the earlier modules about problem solving and how you actually transform that into code, that process is just going to keep getting better and better as you practice. So I said that you can't pick your first programming language wrong, and the reason that you're not going to pick wrong is because of this suggestion. When it comes to programming, I want you to think about the different types of things that you're interested in building as a programmer. And that's okay, you don't have to have an answer to this right away, but I highly encourage people to think through this because if you align your first programming language to things that are going to be better suited for what you want to build, so for example, if you wanted to build mobile applications or you wanted to build websites, you might pick a language that's better suited for that. And by doing this, when you actually start trying to build real things and not just looking at how the syntax looks or the theory behind programming and all of that, you're actually going to have a lot more engagement in your building process. And because you'll be more engaged, the things that you're learning from the theoretical side, they're going to seem a lot easier because you're going to be excited to be building things. Let me use a silly gym example here to illustrate my point. Let's say that you want to get started in the gym, and I showed you a couple of different exercises that we could look at. So you have something like a bench press for your upper body, and you might have something like a squat for your legs. If you said, hey, Nick, I really want to get a bigger, stronger upper body, so I want to go to the gym and learn to bench press, and I came back to you and said, hey, that's too bad. I'll take you to the gym and you're going to squat. you might not be as engaged when we go to the gym at that point. But if instead I walked you through the process of building up a better bench press, you'd be a lot more interested in that and therefore likely retain a lot more of the information. Now, to keep this analogy going, what's really cool is actually some of the things that you would learn through bench pressing in terms of keeping your body rigid and how you want to stack your joints properly to be safe. A lot of that will actually apply to the squat. You're going to be using different body parts for different purposes, but a lot of the different ideas behind the technique, the safety, generating force, a lot of things like that are going to be totally transferable between the different movements. So just like programming languages, the syntax and what we're using them for might look different, but ultimately it's to be able to create programs for computers to run. And the programs that we create are our algorithms, and they are basically the representation of our thought process and logic for the computers. So to summarize this module, you're not going to pick your first programming language wrong. There are tons to pick from, and it's okay if you want to learn another one later because a lot of it is transferable for your next language. So that's it for this one. Let's go on to the next.